I was going to say happy Friday, but it's still Thursday. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85, and Chapter 69 of Section 2706 of the New York City Charter. A joint meeting of the Bronx Borough Service Cabinet and Bronx Borough Board will take place this morning, Thursday, May 25th, and we're starting at 10:05 virtually via WebEx. Once again, good morning, blessed Thursday. Happy to see you all. Thank you all so much for joining us during Bronx Week. I had the pleasure of seeing many of you, but we are not here in the Bronx. We're not constrained to a week or the 13 days that we celebrate. We celebrate Bronx Week every day. So very happy to see you all. I am going to start with roll call. So if folks can identify themselves, we're going to start with community boards. CB1.
Good morning, Madam Deputy. Anthony Jordan, District Manager.
Good morning, Anthony. Community Board 2.
Good morning, Madam Deputy. Good morning, all. Happy Thursday. Ralph Acevedo, Board 2.
Good morning, Rafael. Community Board 3.
Good morning, all. Etta Ritter, Community Board 3.
Good morning, Etta. Etta was on before me this morning. So, Community Board 4. Community Board 5.
Good morning, everyone. LaShonda Dotson, Community Coordinator.
Good morning, LaShonda. Community Board 6.
Good morning, Rafael Morde, District Manager, Board 6.
Good morning, Rafael. Community Board 7.
Good morning, Jahaira Arias, CB7 Bronx Chair.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Community Board, I'm sorry.
Okay, Carla Cabrera Carrera, District Manager.
Good morning, Carla. Community Board 9.
What? Community Board 8.
I'm sorry, Community Board 8.
Hi, good morning. Laura Spalter, Chair, Community Board 8.
Good morning. Community Board 9.
Good morning, Madam Deputy. It's Shirley San Andres Alonso, Deputy District Manager for Community Board 9.
Good morning, Shirley. Community Board 10. Community Board 11. Community Board 12. All right, wonderful. Thank you all so much for attending. Moving on to City Council members and representatives. District 8, Deputy Madam Speaker Diana Ayala. District 11, Councilmember Eric Dinowitz. District 12, Councilmember Kevin Riley.
Good morning, Madam Deputy. Good morning, everyone. Simone Jones, Chief of Staff for Councilmember Riley, present.
Good morning, Simone. District 13, Councilmember Marjorie Velasquez.
Good morning, Madam Deputy, and good morning, everyone. Stephanie Rodriguez, Community Liaison and Events Coordinator for Councilmember Marjorie Velasquez.
Good morning, Stephanie. District 14, Councilmember Pierina Sanchez. District 15, Councilmember Oswald Feliz. District 16, Councilmember Althea Stevens.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kate Connolly, Chief of Staff and Budget Director to Councilmember Althea Stevens.
Good morning, Kate. District 17, Councilmember Rafael Salamanca. District 18, Councilmember Amanda Farias.
Good morning, Madam Deputy. It's Marco Luna, Assistant Director of Constituent Services for Councilmember Amanda Farias.
Good morning, Marcos. Thank you for joining, everyone. Thank you so much. And I do see that we are also, there are different city agencies that also joined our borough board this morning. I see NYC DEP, Effie is on. I see the mayor's office. Hi, Effie, are you on?
Yes, thank you. Thanks. Good morning.
I see Alina from the mayor's office.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Alina. I see representatives and also presenters for DCP.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I also see representatives from the DOT.
Good morning, everyone.
And I also see representatives from CCHR. Any other city agencies that I missed?
Oh, we
that
also have
discussed?
our deputy commissioner in our who's going to be presenting today. He's online.
Wonderful.
Good morning, Valerie, New York City Parks.
Hello, Parks. Thank you for opening up our beaches yesterday.
Yes, it was a great day. It was lots of fun.
Yes, it was. Thank you. Thank you. All righty. Wonderful. And as always, we have a robust and hefty agenda this morning. We received all your feedback in terms of the different presenters that you would like to see during our borough board and service cabinet meetings. And so without further ado, we have 3 items on our agenda. First up, we have the Department of City Planning. We have Siobhan Jackson, Associate Engagement Specialist, who will be presenting on the Community Engagement Fiscal 24 Statement of Needs. Siobhan, if you're on, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. And I am also joined today with Tashina Buffalo Wright, who is my colleague, who's also going to be presenting with me today. So I will share my screen with you all. So let me know if you can see that.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so good morning again, everyone. My name is Siobhan Jackson, and I am a native New Yorker, born in Brooklyn, now residing in Queens. And I am joined today with my colleague in the Community Planning and Engagement Division, Lara Moreta, who is our Senior Director, Elizabeth Hamby on the call as well, who is our Director, Connie Chen, our Assistant Director, and also in Planning Support Division, my colleague Tashina Buffalo Wright, who I had mentioned earlier, will be joining me on this conversation today. So I have been with City Planning for a little over 7 years, and I am new to the Community Planning and Engagement Division. My core role as engagement specialist is to build relationships, partnership development, and to develop a shared understanding and resources for communities. We will be doing this with the leadership in the Bronx office, our new borough director, Paul Phillips, who should be on this call today, joining us as well, and with his borough planners. I know you all may have been working with the Bronx office closely with the district needs process and involving community board engagement work and other city planning related projects. So today I will give you an overview of the new Community Planning and Engagement Division and also introduce what we have as the Civic Engagement Studio, which is a program that is tied into the division and is one component of outreach for community board partnerships and finding strategies to support with making residents aware of the community board's presence in their neighborhoods, as well as the importance of their involvement in the community district needs process. And then later, Tashina will talk a little bit about the importance of investing in those community district needs. So some of you may have heard of the new Community Planning and Engagement Division at City Planning. So who are we and what role do we play in community outreach? So City Planning has recognized the need to incorporate community engagement into the work that we do to advance our engagement efforts with projects that would affect the community we represent. We've done this through our neighborhood studies projects, which serve as the center for DCP's coordinated neighborhood planning work. City Planning, Yes. So City Planning has done this with the Community Planning and Engagement Division, which was developed to foster innovation, add capacity, and build tools and skills for the whole agency. We are extending outreach by collaborating with community boards, civic associations, and other city agencies like we're doing here today, while also focusing on creating holistic community plans that advance the priorities of New Yorkers and work on developing new ways to bring people to the table and including them in robust decision-making processes. City planning has recognized the need to incorporate community engagement in the work that we do to advance our engagement efforts. So we have projects that will affect the community that we engage with. We've done this through our neighborhood studies projects, which serve as the center for DCP's coordinated neighborhood planning work. Our agency is advancing our civic engagement practices and policies through the City of Yes initiatives, which is a priority of Mayor Adams' administration to support efforts to combat climate change, the economic and housing crisis that we are facing. So the Community Planning and Engagement Division recognized the need to broaden its engagement practices, and we developed the Civic Engagement Studio. So the studio is centered as an internal way to support the agency here at City Planning. We work to transform ways we work with stakeholders to shape and advance policies and increase transparency and trust, acknowledging that there are things that we can do better, and of course, evaluate our partnerships and community engagement. The studio is always looking for new ideas, and we are welcoming to hear from the community boards for any feedback. The studio is made up of work streams that support in innovating the way we listen to and learn with communities by developing new tools to improve the effectiveness, inclusiveness, and equity of our engagement strategies. Two key work streams that I would like to highlight today for you all are Youth Engagement Workstream, which was established to build connections between DCP planners and the educational community to increase civic engagement in young people. City Planning, in collaboration with the Laboratory School of Finance and Technology in the Bronx, created and implemented an urban planning pilot program for the high school seniors. These students were able to learn about urban planning, urban decisions, and how decisions get made that impact their community. They were also able to develop their own proposals to advance the quality of life in their neighborhoods while developing the skills to be civic leaders and advocates in their communities. Another work stream that we've created was the Broaden and Diversify Community Input Committee, or BDCI, which is one of the reasons why we're having this conversation today. That work stream was created to evaluate community perspectives and decision-making in the statement of needs process, while diversifying community perspectives represented in our annual submissions, making sure there's equitable access to the process for everyone. The BDCI workstream wanted to work with community boards to develop the best engagement approach. The plan the workstream developed allowed city planning to build recommendations that identified the needs in community boards. We began this process internally, where we surveyed our planners and gathered an overview of that addressed the ways to evaluate current conditions in communities, such as the ways how our planners were perceived by other city agencies, and understand how community boards communicate with planners before, during, and after the city needs process. After we collected that data, the workstream began the outreach process externally, and we scheduled interviews with the community boards. The workstreams reached out to all 59 community boards, and we were able to conduct 21 community board interviews throughout this process in all 5 boroughs. We were able to interview 6 in Brooklyn, 3 in the Bronx, 8 in Manhattan, and 3 in Queens, and 1 in Staten Island. These interviews were intended to develop an outline of the community board's approach for the community district needs process. This included their community engagement strategies and if there were resources needed to gain more input from city planning or other city agencies, whether through trainings or workshops. So we want to say we were listening, The interviews with the community boards were candid, and the district managers and chairs that we spoke with were pleased that we were having these conversations around the importance of the community district needs and engaging the community in the process. But we also were aware that most residents were not familiar with the community boards and the roles that they played in their neighborhoods. So we wanted to focus on opportunities to make folks aware of the community boards and how they should get involved in the community district needs process and the benefits that it has on their neighborhoods. The remainder of the year, the work stream went through each interview and developed a strategy that focused on groupings or similar ideas. And once we collected those descriptions, we were able to come up with a narrative focusing on the key concepts provided from the community boards, which we grouped here into 5 components: online support, language support, in-person support, campaign support, and training support tools. As you can see here, I've highlighted some of the recommendations that the agency has already started to work towards, and since we collected that feedback. The work stream is working towards developing a community planning survey and multilingual use, and also increasing our engagement through social media and providing the community board members training, which we've done last March. Our agency had an opportunity to provide trainings that included zoning, EULA, seeker, and community district needs statements, and also principles of urban design. We're currently looking back into having those 2-day trainings available this fall. We want to continue to work on better strategy methods to gain an overview of the community district needs process. And over the last year, we've done this, as I mentioned earlier, with our agency towards developing an accessible multilingual survey that will bring a variety of perspectives into these conversations. We're also continuing our outreach on social media, and last year, our agency did a push to communities that was released on Twitter, engaging folks to find out from their community boards and the CD needs to find out how they can get involved in their community boards and in the CD needs process. We also are looking for other ways to increase our outreach, and we're looking for strategies to use Link NYC as a place to network with communities as well. So I want to say thank you, and I will turn it over to Tashina, who I mentioned earlier, will talk to you about the importance of investing in community district needs.
Thank you, Siobhan, for that introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm accompanied by members of my planning support team, Stephen Everett, the Director of Planning Support here at DCP, and Ben Lee, our Housing Fellow. As Siobhan said, I'm Tashina. They call me Tash. I've been working for city planning since February 2023. My role here with planning support is to work closely with the community boards and advocate for the needs of the 59 community boards. We'd like to share a new approach as we work with civic engagement to improve the community district needs. Our goal: investing in the value of community district needs. We aim to make community district needs as valuable as possible for boards and agencies alike, delivering useful insight and concrete outcomes. This is the city's most direct community-based budgeting initiative. It is a valuable resource for turning public input into action. Our chief goal is to make this process as useful as possible for both the community boards who participate every year and also the city agencies responding to the community district needs request. And working with this goal, we want to emphasize community board district needs can and should be improved trust and dialogue. It should inform agencies in their planning decisions, and we also want to consider the community perspectives through an equity lens and summarize their perspectives to City Hall and facilities as a community board driven neighborhood planning process. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. The future of New York City community boards. It is appreciated. Your feedback is appreciated. We have been working to continually improve this process. And central to our work are the perspectives and essential to our feedback we have received from our community board partners. Your feedback directly impacts our work. We've been working with the Future of Community Working Groups for some time and have come up with their key feedbacks that aim to address. I'm going to address them. We've heard that community boards are interested in developing a stronger partnership with agencies and would like increased resources to improve their own submission to the agency's responses. The agency is an emphasis on community engagement and public input. Community boards want to improve the accountability and transparency in the process and have technical issues addressed with online submission form. We need the community boards to continue to give us their feedback so as to develop stronger partnerships. So with the community boards include discussions to provide access to resources, broaden community engagement by expanding the types of support we offer the community boards, and improve transparency. An example of that is for the first time ever, we've included agency responses in the state of needs as a transparent movement. In the last few pages of the community district statement of needs, we have completed and published in the month of March this transparency movement, which will help bolster to connect agencies with community to close the loop on requests that receive open responses or requests that community boards need follow-up with and need more discussion. Next slide, please. We hear you. We aim to enhance utility of the CD needs process and investing the value it offers our communities through 4 priority areas. First, we are updating the calendar by opening the submission form in June to give community boards more time for the submission process. Also, the community district needs submission platform. We're working on replacing the submission tool to make it easier, and we'll be collaborating with community boards to develop a new submission website as we are improving the website, and it will be available next year, 2024, and full rollout 2026. In addition, community board support. We have next year extended our community board support. It started in May to give more submission help to the boards. The kickoff will begin this year's fiscal 2025 submission cycle. Emails were sent out attaching some resources to bolster submission and break down some of our new support offerings. Policy priorities to improve CD needs outcomes. By reducing the number of neutral responses, we are working with the agencies to receive more clear and direct responses. No open-ended responses that need follow-up for more information. The less ambiguous responses so help to facilitate with the next fiscal year, which is going into now, which is fiscal year 2025. Next fiscal year. Slide, please.
I'm sorry, Christina. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there seems to be a lag, and then it repeats itself after.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
How can I correct that?
I would just stop your video. Sometimes if there's any issues with upload speeds on a connection, if you stop video and just do audio, that might clear that right up. So if you want to give that a try, let's see.
Okay. Let's start again.
Oh yeah, I would just leave video off.
Yeah, turn your camera off.
And leave the microphone on.
Yep.
And then let's just see as you go through the presentation if that issue clears up.
So on this
Thank
slide,
you.
okay. Can you hear me better? So on this slide, we're saying we hear you. We hear what the community boards have said, and we aim to enhance the utilities of the city needs process, and invest in the value it offers the community through the 4 priority. Oh, geez. Okay. So we're on the next slide, which is the last slide. So your continued partnership is crucial to improving the community district needs. Continue to give us your feedback regarding the submission process and what we can do to assist in the collection of public input. Continue asking community board members to volunteer to help, test, and develop new online submission platform, and continue to talk to people and spread the word. We welcome your feedback, and if you have any questions regarding this presentation, please speak and let me know. Being that most of my presentation you couldn't hear, so I'm ready for any questions.
Thank you so much, Tashina. Towards the end, we were able to hear you crystal clear. Any questions for the DCP team? Really quickly on my end, how many presentations were conducted in the Bronx with our local community boards?
So yeah, we interviewed Bronx Community Board 2, 4, and 7.
And with CD Needs, we have done approximately 40 roadshows within the 5 boroughs. So we talk to all community boards.
All in the Bronx?
No, within the 5 boroughs.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how many in the Bronx.
I can help there, Tash. So with our road shows that she just mentioned, we have been focusing our early spring roadshow efforts to agencies to help summarize the outcomes of the fiscal year 24 process. We haven't presented specifically to any boards, but we are beginning, as Tash noted, preparation for the fiscal year 25 cycle. And we have now offered all community boards across all boroughs a consultation call where we are happy to go through last year's submissions and last year's agency responses.
Wonderful. What better platform to use than our borough board this morning? I think it'll be great if the DCP team can share their contact information. That way our community boards and council members can help us spread the word.
Definitely.
And also, can we share a copy of the presentation? Is that possible?
Yes, I'll send that over. Mhm.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead, Fred. Yep.
Can you speak more about how you're getting city agencies buy-in on the responses? I think this has been a long time frustration of community boards that we list out, dozens of community needs and the agencies basically don't respond and just say, oh, contact your local city council member and ignore our recommendations. Is there some kind of top-down commitment from agencies or from the mayor's office to adjust how responses are given and how exactly that's going to change?
Yes, I couldn't hear all of your question, but we've opened up the submission process earlier in May. So we can start discussing what we did last year and what needs to be done to improve it. This year, we are starting earlier to open the submission form that is in next month to give more help next month. Then when October comes, we'll take when October 31st comes, we will take the forms, we'll strip it down, we'll send it to the agencies, and then we discuss with the agencies what the community boards are discussing and what they need. This goes then to OMB, and then then this goes to OMB, and then the community board statement of needs is published, and we send that out. And then we discuss again with the community boards.
Right. I'm on the process. I'm asking if the conversation with the agencies is different this year than it has been in years past.
Yes. Well, like I said, I'm new. So this is not my first full cycle of it. So from what I can see is that this year we had several conversations with Manhattan. And we also had OMB there. So we're working with the cycle to try to improve on how the submission is done and when the community boards will have a chance to be able to put their budget request in and get their correct responses. Maybe I'm not explaining this, but I'm going to pass this to Stephen to go on further so he can clear it up a little better.
Sure, thank you, Tash, and I think that was a great response. Just to be a little more direct, DCP cannot control agency responses explicitly. However, as Tash noted, we are working with OMB and we are attempting to lead by example. So for example, this year, our director, Dan Garodnik, asked us, because we also receive budget requests, to be very clear. If a budget request aligns with an administrative priority and we can fund it, we will say yes. And if it does not, we will say no, to decrease the number of neutral responses, because these, we hear, are the most frustrating for community boards. We've had this explicit conversation with all of the agencies in the roadshow, and we are trying to append the list of options they have to respond to community boards to make that clearer and align with their funding cycles. So while we can't force their hand to say yes to more projects, we can certainly make it easier so that they can facilitate budget requests that align with their own administrative priorities within the funding cycles they have and provide clearer responses to those. So we are doing our best.
Great, thank you.
Wonderful. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other hands raised. All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Madam Deputy, I apologize. Anthony Jordan from CB1. Is there a way that we could do a clear analysis on building on what my colleague was talking about, where we could look at how, when we make these requests, that we could determine the percentage of how many of these requests are received and funded versus how many we mostly receive negative responses back from the agency. That would help us do an assessment on this process.
We would be happy to do that, and it is one of the offerings we are providing for all community boards who take us up on the offer for a consultation call. We can talk about how many have been funded, how many have been provided with neutral responses, and those the agencies say should not be prioritized for funding. So we are happy to do that with you. If you reach out to our office, and we'll schedule something as soon as we can.
I think all my colleagues from all the community boards will appreciate that. So that it will help us all to be able to tell a story on this process. Thank you.
Absolutely, we completely agree. So please, everyone, reach out. We're happy to have a consult call with all boards individually.
Yes, those emails were sent out yesterday. So please check your inbox. If you do not receive it, please let us know and we'll resend it.
Wonderful. And also if the DCP team can share their contact in the chat, that would be super helpful. And we'll also send in our follow-up email to the entire borough board, we'll share that contact information and the PowerPoint presentation. Great. Well, we thank you so much, DCP. Thank you for the presentation. Tashina, thank you. Stephen, thank you. Siobhan, great having you all on this call this morning. Thank you again, and you're more than welcome to come back to our borough board.
We would love to. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Up next, we have the Mayor's Office Community Affairs Unit. We have Anthony Iliano, our Deputy Commissioner of Operations, and Idol Chargot, Borough Director. They'll be presenting and sharing the results of the overnight truck parking survey, and also speaking to the high number of community responses received from our borough. So the Mayor's Office, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Madam Borough President. Good morning, everyone. Anthony Giuliano here with the Mayor's Office, Deputy Commissioner of Operations for Community Affairs Unit. Alina is also on the call as well. Ito, unfortunately, couldn't join us because we're dealing with the identifying locations for the migrant situation. So he's off in in an area of Queens County right now handling that. But I'm gonna just provide the a brief summary of where the survey looks like it's winding up. It was an interesting survey. We started discussing overnight parking conditions at the mayor's office back in June of 2022. It came up at it originally came up actually at the Queens Borough President's Cabinet meeting that we spoke at, and that's what kind of triggered getting this overnight truck task force, which comprised of many agencies. It was spearheaded by the Mayor's Office of Operations, but along with that, we were pulling in NYPD, EDC, DCAS, Department of Sanitation, Department of Transportation. We also have Department of City Planning. I'll explain that in a couple of moments for more of the long-term game that we're looking at. The Sheriff's Department was also involved, along with other numerous agencies, and obviously the Mayor's Intergovernmental Affairs Office. We convened every week in discussing it. We came up with a survey that we wanted to get a good sense of what the community was seeing and see if it coincides, and try to do the short term. Short term is increased enforcement based on the activity of trucks that are parking, overnight, and they're not, they're prohibited in parking overnight, regardless of whether they're commercial plated or not. This is a problem throughout the whole entire city of New York. It's a problem that has been going on for a couple of decades now. So it's not anything new that sprung up on the city overnight. It's not unique to the city of New York. Other municipalities, other cities are having the same conditions. So what we found was in the survey, and the Bronx was the most active county in responding to the survey. There were about 2,400 responses, and the Bronx made up a good portion of that, which was surprising, quite honestly, because most of the complaints that we were getting were primarily from Southeast Queens. And as a matter of fact, Southeast Queens, the Jamaica, Springfield Gardens, Cambria Heights section of Queens County, they have a task force that has been convening now for the last 20 years to try to combat overnight parking. It's headed by Bill Perkins. A really good group, as a matter of fact, and you got to remember, Southeast Queens borders Kennedy Airport, so then it would make a lot of sense. And you have mixed-use industrial areas in that section of town as well. But in looking at the survey to try to really pinpoint what the concerns were, it was interesting because if we looked at Bronx County, the Baychester section of Bronx County, the Throgs Neck section of Bronx County, Pelham Bay, Woodlawn, Wakefield, Williamsbridge section was also heavy responses. North Riverdale, Fieldston, Kingsbridge. Heavy responses came from primarily the northern portion of Bronx County, going along the eastern border towards the spans, the bridges, Whitestone and Throgs Neck bridges. So it kind of gelled in, and seeing it as well, and in the northern portion of Bronx County, it coincided with the number of violations that were issued. NYPD targeted area, who has done heavy enforcement the last year in those areas with violations, along with Department of Transportation, who also has the ability to issue violations, as well as the Department of Sanitation. So everything kind of blended in. What was also interesting in the survey is that in Queens County, outside of Southeast Queens, like I said earlier, Springfield Gardens, Cambria Heights, Jamaica, South Jamaica, we also were inundated with complaints from or concerns that responded to the survey, and the enforcement activity coincides with that. We saw the Long Island City section of Queens County, along with the Astoria section, and Middle Village, Maspeth, which is industrial. And then if you go off into Brooklyn, you had the Gravesend section, you had the Bensonhurst section, you had the Dyker Heights section, as well, that was affected. So those were the hot spots, but Bronx had its portion of hot spots. So what we did was we also in the survey had put photos of what the difference is between a box truck as opposed to a tractor trailer, as opposed to a cab, as opposed to a disengaged tractor. It's very common if you drive by the cemeteries, you'll find the tractor trailers parking all around the cemeteries, and that is true no matter what part of the city you went into. We've seen those conditions, and so what we're trying to get out of the survey is the short term. Short term is really to do more targeted enforcement. We have a Truck Tuesday operation through the NYPD, NYPD Traffic Division of out of 1 PP. You know what happens? Sometimes what was going on is people were putting in complaints with the overnight truck parking conditions, but you try to dispatch the local precinct. But we really want to start to dispatch the traffic division of the NYPD to address these concerns, right? Because the precinct's already stretched out, focusing in and doing other things. Not that, they can't write summonses, but we want a more targeted approach where the traffic division of the NYPD under Chief Pilecki, who's been doing a fantastic job, and Inspector Warby, they've been very responsive in going out into these areas. So one of the things we'll offer up for the community boards, give us the locations along with the borough president's office where we could do a Truck Tuesday enforcement operation. You could work that out through Alina from our office, and we'll get it to 1 PP, so we could try to assist you there. The violations, quite honestly, part of the problem is that the overnight truck summons is a $65 summons, right? It's really the cost of doing business. However, there is another code 78, that was passed by the city council a few years back. And one of the architects of that city council bill was Danique Miller, former council member out of Southeast Queens. A code 78, on the first offense, they receive a $250 violation. Unfortunately, they have to go up to Albany to serve it, right? Because these are licensed commercial drivers. But on the second offense, the violation jumps to $500. So the NYPD Traffic Division has been more focused on issuing code 78s, right? So now it's not that $65 summons. Long-term game based out of the survey is that we're going to start to work with the city council and the state legislators if we need to increase the penalties, the fines, the summonses, move it from a $65 and put it into a different area. So it makes it, we don't want to hurt the truck drivers necessarily, right? But they're out there providing the goods and services that we depend on, but at the same time, they have to follow the codes here in the city of New York. And overnight truck parking, what we found interesting, also based on that survey, what was the biggest concern when somebody parks a truck overnight in your area, in your neighborhood? And it was blocked lanes, blind spots, not being able to see what's going on the other side, on the sidewalk activity. They also were concerned with, like I said, the bike lanes was the other issue that did pop up a lot. And it was mostly visibility, and so we kind of factored that in to see where we're going. One of the things we're going to start to look at and pursue possibly is the identifying locations throughout the city of New York where parks can park legally, right? Here's the problem. You could have a box store like Home Depot, but Home Depot is not allowed to have trucks that are not an accessory to the business park in their lot overnight. It's prohibited. As a matter of fact, when I was with the buildings department a few years ago, there was a Kohl's department store out in Queens County, and they were allowing trucks to park overnight. They wound up with a lease agreement. And well, Department of Buildings went out there and issued a violation. It was not accessory to the businesses that were there. So that's one of the things we're going to start to look at, the box stores, but that's more long-term. That's a long-term game that we're looking at, identifying locations. And then you also have a situation in which you have the tractor trailers that are coming in from Jersey, coming in from northern part of New York State, going through the counties or going out to Nassau and Suffolk County, that's a certain bucket of the truck activity that we see. But there is another element, and we're working with the trucking industry as well. The truckers also received a survey. There's the box trucks. There's the business, owner operator businesses that are parking overnight in the neighborhoods, and they're parking close to where they live. It's not uncommon during the survey operation that we were working on that we went out into Southeast Queens as an example, and we were watching truckers park the vehicles in Southeast Queens, and then someone would be driving them over into Valley Stream. I would not be surprised if we have the same conditions existing in the northern portion of Bronx County, right? They're parking the northern portion of Bronx County, and they're going into Westchester County, New Rochelle, Yonkers, where they probably reside, but park the trucks here on the city side, city line. So it's identifying locations where they can park legally, and that's why it's important that we're working with DCAS, we're working with city planning, we're working with EDC. We're going to try to identify these locations. What part of the survey is that we did ask residents who responded where they would like to see the parking legally of trucks exist. There might be a possibility of overnight truck parking where the meters exist, right? And then they pay a higher rate to park at those locations as well. So these are things, again, that's a little further out. We have to experiment, obviously, and look at those type of conditions. But I will give credit to the Mayor's Office of Operations, who did a fantastic job working with it, and we were very well pleased with the responses, and we were pleased with the responses that came from Bronx County, because the bulk of the complaints were also in Bronx County, and the bulk of the violations were being issued in Bronx County. So everything kind of coincided. So we're appreciative of that, and we're also appreciative of the community boards in Bronx County that reached out to all those constituents that probably go to their office, as well as the borough president's office, complaining about overnight truck parking, and you got the word out there for the responses. And we also appreciative to the local media that put it out there to respond to the survey and what the deadline was. So we've seen a nice little spike there. So we appreciate that as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner. And again, the numbers speak for themselves. It's been an issue that we've been receiving feedback on time and time again, and just to hear some clarity on the new strategies that you are all implementing really helps us navigate this issue. Alina, I saw that your hand was raised. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I was clapping. I was clapping because I was so happy that the Bronx actually really participated, and that's what we continue to say at all of our meetings. Please, we need our people to talk about these issues, because that's the only way that they're going to be able to be addressed in our community. So that was a clap. That wasn't a raise. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Etta, I did see your hand raised.
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much, Commissioner, for that. I needed that clarity because I do have a lot of constituents that complain about truck parking in the bike lanes on Park Avenue. So I appreciate that. And I'm also getting, I know you did trucks, I'm getting complaints regarding school buses now. Also, parking near schools, which they're allowed to do that, but constituents are saying that they're taken away from residents, being able to park as well, because they stay there on the weekends, they park on Fridays, they don't move till Monday. So it is very good to know, because I was talking to my committee members, and they were complaining about the buses, and they said, well, write a letter to DOE to see if the buses can park in like school, because some schools use their yards as parking for the teachers. But you just gave me some clarity that that's not going to be possible, because it's, I was thinking about insurance reasons. What if the bus parks there and overnight somebody vandalizes the bus, right? So now who are they going to charge? Who are they going to make responsible? Department of Education? So now you're saying it has to do with the business that parks there has to be affiliated with, the entity, right?
Yes, yes. Annetta, no, you brought up a good point. Now it's interesting. If the buses are contracted by the Department of Education, part of the performance standards in the contract requires that they have a facility to park at.
Yeah,
Technically, a reputable school bus company does not allow the employee to take the bus off the grounds and the premises where they need to park, and they can't really bring those vehicles back to where they reside. So one of the things I would suggest is maybe finding out from the Department of Education if it's a contract that the DOE has, is it a performance standard requirement that they have to park at a facility? Most municipalities across the country that get involved with school bus operations, public schools in particular, will it's mandatory that they must park the buses at the company location. Yeah, they
Take it
shouldn't be
back to the,
parking off
yeah.
street. Yeah. Now, if it's a private company, then I don't want to use the term fly by night, but if it's a private company, then that can mean all bets are off, right? Sometimes that happens, but still, they shouldn't be parking overnight at a location. It does dovetail into something else that maybe I did not intend to bring up, but maybe it's a good point to bring it up now. Many residents in these communities throughout the city of New York are also contractors, or they have a business, and they run the business from their home, and they bring the vehicle back to their home. The contractor van, the lawn. If they're a landscaper, they might be bringing back the commercial plated vehicle back onto their property to park overnight. They're not even allowed to park overnight on their property with commercial plates. You cannot have a commercial plated vehicle park overnight in a residential zone. As a matter of fact, if you're a plumber and you have a vehicle, a plumbing, your business, and it's advertised A&V Plumbing, you're not supposed to be on a residential street even overnight, unless you're doing some sort of emergency work for a customer.
Right.
So if those conditions exist, yeah, that's something that's kind of separate from what we're talking about here with the overnight truck parking. But let us know because you could have the local NYPD traffic enforcement officers could write violations for those conditions, and if they're parking on property, DOB can write those violations.
Okay, so when I spoke to school transportation, I found out about the contracting. I didn't ask them that, but they did say school buses can park a certain amount of feet away from a school. So this particular issue that I'm having, this particular bus company that I'm having issues with, they park right across the street from the school.
All right.
Do they service the school? I don't believe so. I don't know. But the driver lives in a co-op building there. That I do know, but I don't know if that person services that school.
You know what we'll do, Alina, if you could get that information, maybe we'll do, a site visit and see what's going on there.
Okay, Alina.
Yeah.
Okay, I just need your information.
Yes, I'll share it with you in the chat.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate this. This was very informative.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you
Really
for that.
was. And I do see Shirley's hands raised.
Hi, thank you. And I do echo a lot of what Etta was saying. We also have the same concerns with school buses. I was surprised to hear that the Bronx didn't have the highest number of complaints in your record already, because we're constantly emailing. But I think the reason is we've been those people that are emailing NYPD and not traffic. And so I have documented tons of emails with these concerns about overnight truck parking, but to NYPD. So I just wanted to clarify, moving forward, we're reaching out to NYPD, the traffic division, or Alina, or was it just Alina for if we wanted to do what do you call that? Like an enforcement operation.
Yeah, you know what? At this point, what I would suggest, based on your question, and let's work with Alina, right? Because Alina is very active out in your county, and we'll you give us the locations where this condition exists, and we'll coordinate with the NYPD.
Thank you. And then is that the same? Because we also have trailers, you know, like without the head that are just like abandoned in our district. Is that the same?
That could be, if it's an abandoned trailer, then we work with the Department of Sanitation. Again, get us those locations where the abandoned trailer is located at, and then we'll work with DSNY. DSNY.
You got cut off really quickly, Commissioner.
Anthony, we can't hear you.
Yeah, the mic went off a little bit.
Check to see if you hit mute. Sometimes you hit mute by accident.
No, he's not on mute. It has to do with.
How
There we
about
go. You're back.
Yeah, I'm back. All right. It's probably a cheap headset that I'm using somebody else's office. I'm in Queens County. I couldn't make it into Manhattan in time for the 10 o'clock. Anybody from the MTA on? I want to blame the MTA, but that's another story. All right. So, what we can do is, the sanitation. There's a certain protocol they have to follow for the abandoned trailer. So if it's an abandoned trailer, 7 days, then they have the ability to tow the trailer. Now keep in mind, one of the things that we had gotten early on is, why can't you just tow the trucks? The problem is, where do you tow to? New York City, is very in need of locations to tow the vehicles. As a matter of fact, when we do the tow truck operation on Tuesdays, we have to try to work with a property owner to identify a location where we can store the trucks. And we have to then, because we're towing the trucks, we have to provide, the NYPD has to provide security for 24 hours at the location. And sometimes, that becomes a problem. But if you have those tractor locations, let us know, and we'll work with the NYPD and DSNY.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we were one of those community boards that reached out to all of our residents that complained and sent them the link to the survey. And we did the survey, and we were like pushing this because it's a big issue in CB9. So we're very grateful. Thank you.
And no, we are grateful because really, I was expecting Southeast Queens to have the number. And when I seen the Bronx, I said, I got to give a hat tip. I said,
Kudos to all the community boards to help push this survey forward.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Commissioner. And thank you to our very own Alina. You always show up whenever we need you. If you don't already have Alina's contact, Alina, if you can just drop your contact in the chat, you should by now, because she is everywhere. She is everywhere. So thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner. And we're happy to have you back whenever you want to come back.
oh, yes. I'll be more than happy to come back and, and address, I love the Bronx. Lately, I've been finding myself going over to Bridgemore to eat at the restaurants in the Bronx. So I'm going to frequent it much more often, and definitely the last couple of years, which was good.
Wonderful. We promise we don't have connectivity issues like Queens. Moving on. Once again, thank you to the mayor's office. Thank you, Alina. Thank you, Commissioner. Up next, we have the Office of Cannabis Management with a very, very important presentation, providing us with updates on new enforcement powers and strategy. And so with that, I hand it over to Ms. Pascal Bernard, Deputy Director of Intergovernmental Affairs and External Affairs. Good morning, OCM.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. We always get a nice warm welcome from the Bronx. And I'm just across the bridge, so hopefully you guys give me a license to come into Bronx like Anthony to frequent some restaurants.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna get started. Next slide, please. So OCM has new enforcement powers, expanded enforcement powers that were passed in the budget the governor has signed, and we're really excited to share this information with you. A lot of this comes from really all the complaints that you guys have forwarded to us, not just the Bronx, but just municipalities across the state and other boroughs. So the enforcement powers gives OCM power over, we have power over licensed entities, licensed businesses, and OCM works with local authorities to address issues related to unlicensed cannabis business, and efforts include identifying unlicensed operators, seizing illicit products, fines, and store closures. OCM has been conducting large enforcement seizures on our OCM licensed operators since November of 2022. Next slide, please. So here we're going to talk about our new powers. And so the law really empowers three entities, and you just saw them in the previous slide. It's OCM, Department of Taxation, and the Attorney General. Next slide, please. And so the revisions to the cannabis and tax laws were included in the 2023 fiscal year 2023-2024 budget, and it establishes a comprehensive framework to address the spread of unlicensed cannabis shops statewide, specifically in the new law. It empowers OCM to take enforcement actions against businesses selling cannabis without the required licenses, including so-called sticker shops and other similar unlicensed businesses selling cannabis. It also bolsters OCM's authority, allowing us to conduct regulatory inspections of all businesses selling and giving away cannabis, allowing for the inspection of these businesses by using court order if the business does not allow OCM to conduct an inspection, empowers OCM to seize cannabis found in unlicensed cannabis businesses, also assess penalties against unlicensed cannabis businesses. Next slide, please. Establishes selling cannabis and cannabis products without a license as a Class A misdemeanor. It empowers the New York State Department of Tax and Finance to conduct regulatory inspections of businesses selling cannabis to determine if the appropriate tax has been paid and to issue fines and penalties when they've not been paid. It establishes a new tax fraud crime for when cannabis businesses willfully fail to collect or remit required cannabis taxes or knowingly possess for sale any cannabis on which tax was required to be paid but was not. Next slide. Closure of illicit stores. OCM has the authority to revoke, cancel, or suspend any registration, license, or permit issued under cannabis law for cannabis violations. For violation of the cannabis law, OCM has the authority to conduct regulatory inspections during normal business hours of any place of business, including vehicles used for such business, where business is engaging in activity which a license would be required under the cannabis law, including that's medical cannabis, adult use cannabis, cannabis product, cannabinoid, hemp extract, or any product marked or labeled as such are cultivated, processed, stored, distributed, or sold by any person holding a registration, license, or permit under the cannabis law. Next slide, please. The law also empowers OCM to seek court order injunctions, closing orders, and the removal of commercial tenants to ensure unlicensed cannabis businesses cannot continue to operate. This can incentivize landlords to make sure that their tenants are acting in compliance. If a commercial property owner allows an unlicensed cannabis retailer to operate on their property, OCM or the Attorney General can take legal action to require the landlord to remove the retailer. Additionally, if the owner fails to remove the retailer, the owner may face up to 3 times the amount of rent that was charged during the time of the violation. The property owner can also be held liable for the cost of legal proceedings. Next slide, please. The enforcement actions process will be as follows: providing word to landlord on the front end of the operation so that they are officially on notice about actions taking place on their property and their liability under the law. OCM then moves in to inspect and seize illicit products. OCM immediately issues a notice of violation. OCM immediately places a notice of violation sticker on the entrance, giving the store operator / owner a hearing date on the spot, as well as a cease and desist order on the spot. All paperwork connected to the operation will be sent to our new administrative law judge hearing office, and we should have initial hearings within 3 to 4 days after enforcement actions take place. Next slide, please. Financial penalties. The financial penalties add penalties for persons who cultivate for sale or sells cannabis, cannabinoid product, or medical cannabis, or any product that is marketed or labeled without having an appropriate registration, license, or permit, or if such registration, license, or permit has been revoked, suspended, or canceled. Violators will be subject to a penalty of no more than $10,000 each day during the violation, each day which the violation continues, and additional civil penalties in the amount of no more than 5 times the revenue from such prohibited sales. Next slide. Any person who knowingly possesses for sale or has received a notice and an opportunity for a hearing will face specific penalties. More than 5 pounds, but less than 12 pounds of illicit cannabis may be liable for civil penalties up to $25,000 for the first violation, up to $50,000 for the second violation, and subsequent violations within the 3 year following the prior violation. More than 12 or more pounds of illicit cannabis, or 4 or more pounds of illicit concentrated cannabis or illicit cannabis edible product, the liability goes up. It's $75,000 to $100,000. And again, you know, subsequent for violations within the 3 years following the prior violation. More than 5 pounds of illicit cannabis, more than 1 pound of illicit concentrate cannabis or illicit cannabis product edibles, we're looking at $50,000 to $100,000 in fines. Next slide, please. Civil penalties. OCM has the authority to revoke, cancel, or suspend any registration, license, or permit used under cannabis law for a violation of the cannabis law. Additionally, OCM will have the ability to revoke a sales tax certificate of authority for possession of adult use cannabis by an unregulated business. New York State can revoke a registration for possession of illicit cannabis for 1 year from the first possession. For the first possession, 3 years for the second possession, and 5 years for the third possession. Provides for streamlining appeals process for such revocations modeled on the process for possession of untaxed cigarettes. Next slide, please. Reporting. Beginning January 1st of 2024 and annually thereafter, OCM is required to submit a report to the legislature. OCM will post the report on our website, and the report will include enforcement actions by OCM and the Department of Tax of Finance have taken. So this is the dispensary verification tool. We've, I think, talked about this before. All licensed dispensaries have to display this sign on the front of their door. And so there's the QR code. It links to the New York State licensed dispensaries, and medical dispensaries also have a similar tool. Next slide, please. And as you may remember, there are 2 ways that you can file a complaint with us. You can go to complaints@ocm.ny.gov, or you can go to Cannabis NY report /report an incident. And we ask as much information as possible. And so one of the reasons we ask for all this information is then our inspectors, our enforcement team don't have to keep going back and forth to try to get information. So as comprehensively as possible, and certainly, you know, particularly as it relates to pictures of alleged illicit activity, we're not asking anyone to put themselves in danger. If you can get a picture, great. If you can't, that's fine. That's not necessary. But the name of the business, the time of the activity, location, you know, if it's been reported to 911, proximity to a school, a house of worship, and contact information would be great. Next slide, please. Next steps. So OCM is making sure that we are operationally grounded and ready to go on enforcement action against illicit shops by finalizing the securing of storage facilities to hold the illicit products across the store, finalizing inventory forms and reporting forms, creating and printing closure stickers to place on the illicit shops, making sure that SOPs are updated, final, in line with language of the bill, and controlling emergency regulations. So SOPs and standard operating procedures. And OCM Council is finalizing the accompanying regulatory scheme so that they can be filed with Department of State rulemaking as emergency regulations. Next slide, please.
That's all the slides, Pascal.
Okay, so we're at the end. So that was a lot of words. And so what it really means is we understand as an agency, you know, we've heard, we've seen all the complaints and we've been working on it, but initially the MRTA only gave us jurisdiction over licensed entities. And so the state legislature and the governor came together. And so now we have powers over unlicensed sellers. And as you can see, it's not just OCM, it's the Department of State and it's the Attorney General's office. And we really do plan to aggressively go after, you know, people who are operating outside of the law.
Great. I'll turn it over to the members of the board. Anthony, I see your hand raised for any questions.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. Couple of questions, Bernard, and with this also I think that I saw Adam from your team who I've been in contact with frequently. Community Board 1 has the privilege to be able to fulfill its fiduciary responsibility, opining upon whether or not a cannabis retail dispensary receives a license or give our opinion to the board for receiving a license to operate in the borough of the Bronx in my district. A couple of questions. How is the state allocating resources to determine for enforcement where will enforcement officers be dispatched to in order to work on this new power they have to ensuring that we are getting enforcement as necessary? How is the state doing that?
So we continue to hire, and to be very transparent, our fastest growing and largest team thus far is enforcement, and they continue to grow. Additionally, you know, we're grateful for the new powers, but even prior to the new powers, we were working in an interagency task force with local police department, the sheriff, DOHMH when necessary, and worker protection when necessary. And so we're going to continue to do that. And, you know, how we determine where we go is also based on, you know, the information that we're getting, which is why the complaints are really important. And it's important that people send the complaints to us so that we have them. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, a cease and desist letter, what's that going to do? But that's very important because it lays the foundation. And we need to be able to prove that we've started the process and that we've notified people that they are operating outside of the law. And so, you know, all of those things will be coming together so that we can, you know, engage in enforcement activities. So I think the first step is for you guys as the managers to communicate with your constituents and provide them with the information of how they can lodge complaints. I do know that because last week we were with Manhattan at their borough board, I do know that the New York City Council is working on a way to be able to funnel the complaints to the 311 system. So that I don't believe has happened as of yet. They've not voted on it, but I'm sure when they will, Cannabis NYC, as well as, you know, the local council members will make sure that constituents know about it. So that becomes one more avenue where people will be able to lodge complaints.
So, and then Madam Deputy, if you give me, it's a little leeway. So are we, so is this enforcement is this starting immediately now that you have these new powers, or is it taking you some time to roll it out? Because you're looking to hire a maximum amount of staff. How is that rollout going to happen?
So we've been engaging in enforcement activity for over a year. We continue to engage in enforcement activities. We are grateful for the new powers, and we're using the new powers as we have them.
And my last question, or next to last, is you asking how are you understanding what when you talk about penalties and fines, how are you determining illegal shops, what the rents are? Are you finding some way where these leases are registered in some way? Because I'm not sure if commercial leases have to be registered like and residential leases, so that you ensure that you are handing out the appropriate fines. How are you determining that?
So that's a great question, Anthony.
Yeah, because sometimes you have the issues with landlords and shop owners are working together. So I'm just want to learn more about what are you doing.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I don't have an immediate answer to it, but we're gonna actually jot that question down because we're going to send the slides to the borough president's office so that they can distribute to everybody, and that will be a question that we have to source an answer for you for.
Right, and my last question, my assumption is that so taxation finance issues, the tax fines, you guys are doing the enforcement, the attorney general is doing the legal aspect, correct?
Yeah, Department of Tax and Finance is lead on the tax stuff.
Like tax stuff. Okay, thank you, Madam Deputy.
Thank you so much, Anthony. And just to be clear, Pascal, I'm just putting myself in the position of someone that's submitting a report. So if I identify a business that I feel is operating illegally, I just submit the information that's on that link. Is that the process?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just want to clarify that.
And I also want to, kind of level set some expectations, because sometimes people then reach back out to us and ask us, well, where are you on the investigation?
Right.
It is an investigation. We don't get updates from our enforcement team because they don't want to risk their investigation.
Got it.
Just like with the NYPD, if they're investigating a theft or a murder, they can't keep telling us what they're doing and where they are. They can say it is an ongoing investigation. And that's what our enforcement team tells us. And that's what we communicate. And I know that sometimes not knowing is frustrating, and we're certainly not trying to frustrate anybody, but we're just trying to make sure that we don't do anything to jeopardize the investigation.
And is there a tentative timeline, kind of like a turnaround time that OCM has kind of provided to folks? I'm not saying that we're gonna stick to that timeline, but how long does typically an investigation last?
So it's hard to say how long a typical investigation lasts, simply because there's so many variables with each case. So it's really, really difficult to kind of put a timeline on this. And I know that also can be frustrating.
Yeah.
And we're certainly not trying to frustrate anybody, but just again, being very transparent so you have the expectations and you can manage your constituents' expectations.
Okay, thank you for that. And I see Eda's hand is raised. Eda?
Hi, thank you so much, Pascal, for that. So I would like to make a suggestion, because I understand about when things are being investigated, it takes time. So when a constituent or myself fills this out, right, an incident out, is there some way for them to send us some type of response saying, so do they do that? First of all, send your response saying, I've received this and we're working on it, and we'll get back to you like in 12 weeks. Is this some way, like, you don't have to really say what it is that you're doing, just saying like the agency received your response and we'll get back to you within 12 weeks, even though it may take longer than 12 weeks. And then after the 12-week status, if it could be generated again, if it's still an ongoing investigation, because that's the only way, it seems like that'd makes a person more accountable. It has some type of way for the system to generate a response to us. So it helps everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I received that recommendation. We will definitely take it back that there should be an auto response, like we received this complaint, thank you, and things like that.
Right.
Channeling my enforcement colleagues, they probably won't do a 12-week, but they, I think,
6 months,
definitely having,
right.
I think having an auto response is something, again, that we can bring back.
And the auto response could say something like 6 months, within a 6 months time frame. I mean, not to cut you off, but like DOT, you request a speed hump, it could take a whole year for them to do the survey. That's just what it is sometimes. So we're being realistic here. So yes, with the auto response, and even if they could say 6 months to a year.
Yeah, and I think to Eda's point, one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing is just folks are discouraged. Like, with the legalization of cannabis, you have a group that's celebrating and rejoicing, but then you also have a community that's still, again, healing and grieving, and it's discouraged with kind of like the lack of enforcement that they have seen with kind of like these unlicensed operations. And so we will do our best efforts to ensure that we are taking advantage of this incident report and being able to log it in. But I think to Eda's point, understanding kind of like the turnaround time, because we don't want to start promoting this and then it takes about a year, 2 years for an unlicensed shop to kind of be deemed unregulated, and they've already caused damage for 2 whole years in a community. So I think that's one of our biggest concerns. And then before I turn it over to Anthony, Pascal, I wanted to know, is this incident report available in different languages, or is it just English?
I believe it's available in English and Spanish. I'll double check and we'll add that to what we send to you. And I know that the Bronx has, a large French speaking population and things like that, but we will try to get that done. I do want to also say though that, for some of the penalties, because it's like a step, it's like stairs, right? The step one is the cease and desist and going in, and then with each step we kind of ratchet it up. I do also want to just again level set. We know that it's very difficult in New York City to have people leave businesses and homes and things like that, right? So the reality is that if we do have to go to court and all of those things, it will take some time, because one of our expanded powers is to be able to shut down a business and close it permanently. And so those are things that will take some time, just given the nature of the density here in the city, and given the fact that everybody has a right to representation. And so just want to also just level set that.
No, we completely understand. Anthony? And we're close to time, so I just want to...
I'll be very brief, Madam Deputy. Thank you again. I wanted to talk about, and I know that sometimes these things are also very territorial. And so I want to say that hopefully that the state is willing to work with our partners in NYPD, and a lot of this, get a lot of these complaints, get a lot of these issues that are going on, and with the sheriff's office to ensure that this issue won't be territorial as far as your investigation is concerned, because it will help hopefully speed the issue along. So I hope that that is something that can be ensured in this new enforcement powers, that you will work with your municipality law enforcement agencies to ensure that whatever processes come out in court or legally, that it moves forward. Because if you ask the community to accept a legalization of a product recreationally, well, for whatever reason, you have to match that almost to ensure, because it's hard for a community to tell differences between what's happening legally and what is coming into our community as a legal establishment. And that's all. Thank you, Madam Deputy.
Well, we already work with our partners in law enforcement here in the city. We work with the New York City Sheriff's Department. We work with the NYPD. We also work with the district attorneys, and again, DOHMH when necessary, and Department of Worker Protection. So we're not going to throw that out. We're not throwing the baby in the bathwater. Like, we're going to continue to work in those partnerships. These are deep relationships that we've created in the last 2 years that the office has been in existence, and so we will continue to partner with them. They're amazing, and we've had a successful relationship with all of those entities.
And last question before we jump into announcements. Pascal, is there some type of like digital media campaign for this report, for this incidents report, that our boards and our council members can share alike? Because they do get a ton of questions around this item.
I will check with our digital person back in our comms team to see what digital assets we have that we can certainly share out. I will also say that we're doing things on parallel tracks. So as we are we have these expanded enforcement powers, and we're engaging in that. We're also engaging in Why Buy Legal, which is to educate people why they need to go over to the legal market and to purchase from the licensed dispensaries. And so I did email that information out, so you all should have it. If you should check your emails for you should check your inboxes for email from me. But we will also include the Why Buy Legal assets in the email that we sent to the Borough President's office, so that you have. But it is a parallel track because we have to engage in enforcement, but we also have to educate people about why they should be purchasing, safe, regulated product.
Right, and that's not that's to say that we don't want to kind of undo the social equity progress that we've been advocating and fighting for many years. We just want to make sure that folks have somewhere to turn to and know where to turn to if they are seeing these unlicensed operations taking place. We've received reports of vans that are selling in front of schools, and things of that nature. And so we just want to make sure that we are, as we are educating, that we are also empowering folks with these materials to help us flag these unlicensed operators.
No, definitely. Just want to thank everybody for your time, but want to specifically thank your borough president and your deputy borough president. The Bronx is always generous to us, so we appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be back again for something.
We love having you on, Pascal. Thank you so much for always answering the call. We truly, truly appreciate you. And so we'll make sure to share all of this information, the slideshows, the presentations from our lovely presenters in our follow-up emails. Before we wrap, I just want to turn it over to Tom Lucania, the Senior Advisor to the Borough President, to speak very briefly on the changes to the open meetings law. Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Deputy. Good morning, everyone. We've received communication from the mayor's office that the mayor did reissue the order, the executive order regarding remote meetings. That executive order will now expire on July the 19th. And from that email, it is most likely that it will not be extended any further than July 19th. So meetings that are occurring after July 19th will have to be fully in person unless your boards have previously passed a resolution which allows for hybrid meetings. And a couple of boards did that probably earlier or late last year. If you are in that category, you would have to move to that hybrid model. If you did not pass a resolution which allows you to do hybrid meetings, you will go completely in person beginning July the 20th. There has been some question, and this may go to the mayor's office as a question, is that most boards will be off obviously for the summer, and the last 2 weeks of June we do have a number of board meetings, and the question was, is there any possible way of extending that executive order through the end of June so that everybody at least is on the same foot in June? and it would give July and August it would give the boards an opportunity for July and August to make all of the necessary connections and looking for locations and making sure that locations are able to take meetings, because there still are some organizations that will not let outside groups in to have meetings. So it is important that we have a little bit of time to have the boards plan for the in-person meetings. And so if there was any possible way of extending it, or talking with the mayor's office and the Corp Council about extending it at least until the end of June, I think that would be fair to all of the boards citywide.
And really quickly, just for clarification, Tom, it expires June 19th or July?
Did I say July? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. June 19th.
June 19th. Okay.
June 19th. I apologize. June 19th. So meetings beginning June 20th would have to be in person. I apologize.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes, you can, Commissioner.
If we can hear you.
Oh, still. How about now? No.
Go ahead. You're good now.
All right. Who was this sent to so we could follow up with them?
I think Kira Gannon, our Director of Community Boards, reached out to Commissioner Vasquez.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I apologize. I just
Yes.
wanted to, get them because Memorial Day weekend's coming up, and I just wanted to make sure I try to get you, some guideline. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Also,
if the
I'm
mayor's
sorry.
office can help us there, that would be really appreciated.
Yeah, is there any way, Tom, can we find out? I mean, we have 12 boards in the Bronx. Is there any way we can find out who actually adopted the model? So when we go and we speak and be able to say something and ask the mayor to extend it, we can either say, because all 12 boards need the summer to be able to move into their adopted model. We want to give him numbers. He's big on numbers. So if you can give us a number and find out how many boards actually adopted the model, that would also help.
That's fine. I will check that, and I will get that information to you. I do not think it was many, but I will get you those boards.
Yeah, we'll work with our community boards unit to get you that breakdown, Alina. Absolutely.
Okay.
And so that means that depending on the date for our next borough board, we will most likely meet in person. But we will send ample notification. But with the mayor's help, if we could extend it to the end of June, we won't have to.
Right.
And just a shameless plug here, Commissioner, we've been doing amazingly in terms of being able to meet in person, and that transition into meeting virtually, that transition to in person, given the end of the month, will be of great help and support, especially for the new district managers and the new reps for our council members.
And just in terms of next month's borough board will probably require a vote. So we will need to assure that we have quorum, and if we're going to do it in person, for many people, it's the first time at a in-person meeting, at least here. So we do need to know so that we can plan for that as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And I know we're 8 minutes past time, but really quickly, I'm just going to run down through the Bronx Borough President's announcement. Just wanted to let you know, Thursday, June 1st, we have our Pride flag racing. It'll take place right here on 851 Grand Concourse on the 161st Street Courthouse Pavilion from 12 to 2 p.m. On Wednesday, June 14th, we will have our annual Bronx Pride event. It will be hosted at Rosasat Park from 6 to 10. Again, we'll share those flyers. And before we will make sure that we are in constant communication with the mayor's office just to understand the potential extension. I'm hopeful here, but we will notify everyone if it'll be in person or still remote. So thank you all for joining us this morning. Thank you for your patience, your attention, and your questions. We will follow up with all the PowerPoint presentations for our presenters. A huge thank you to our presenters as well for being patient with us and showing up for our Bronx Borough Board. Thank you all. Have a blessed holiday weekend. Take care, be safe, and happy Friday, Junior. Be well. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Well, have a